This is the American Indians, indigenous peoples' truths. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere.
Alito, Osio, Taishu, Shadana Lai, Sikan, to three of my native tribes, my greetings to you. I'm Jay Winter Nightwolf, along with my executive producer. Look at us smiling. Let's cry. You are as beautiful as ever.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that after a long day of work.
I know. So my request to you is, Leslie, would you give us a land acknowledgement?
Yes, I will. Let's pause for a moment to acknowledge the traditional stewards of the lands that we reside on. Where I am right now in New Jersey, this was the land of the Lenape and still is, and especially their ancestors, descendants, and all indigenous people who live now and have ever lived on this land that we call Turtle Island and beyond. But more than acknowledgement, let's honor and support our existing indigenous communities by helping them continue their land-based practices, traditions, and way of life, by dispelling false narratives about their history and people while promoting their unique truths, helping them heal from past wrongs and offenses, and assisting them in protecting and restoring back to health the land, nature, and water, which brings life. Amen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leslie. We have some interesting guests tonight, and they're not people we haven't seen before. But I got two more of my sisters with us. Can we bring them in?
Yes, we can.
Micheline Big Man and Raquel Painter. So let's start with you, Micheline. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
My name is Micheline Big Man. My Indian name is Bani Chahush, which one that speaks with a kind word, but I think people that know me would differ. I'm from the Apsalaga Nation, also as the Crow Tribe of Montana. I am a United States Army veteran. I served combat tour in Iraqi Freedom. I was deployed twice. I am the founder of Native American Women Warriors, which is an all-female, it's a two-part, all-female Native American color guard, and we're also a nonprofit. And glad to be on the show. Good to see everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My sister, my Marine Corps sister, Raquel Painter. How you doing, sweetheart?
I am doing good. Thank you for having me back. For those that don't know me, I'm Raquel Painter. I'm from the Santee Sioux tribe and the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska. I am currently president of United Way of Onslow County and founder of the Onslow Veterans Powwow. I am a retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major, served 26 and a half years.
All right. I tell you what, on this broadcast, there's no shortage of fun. We have fun, but we speak the truth. Leslie, tell us about who you are.
My name is Leslie Fry. I am, I would say, Afro-Indigenous of Choctaw and Catawba heritage. I am from the great state of Show Me State of Missouri. And yeah, like you didn't know. And that's my attitude, show me. And I am the executive producer of Cliff Dye Productions, the executive producers of the show. And I'm also the executive producer of Native Brown Media, which hosts content regarding indigenous truths, narratives, and truths about the intersection of people of Turtle Island.
Thank you very much. So, what are we talking about tonight, Leslie?
So this month, this actually on May the 3rd, we celebrated, or is it May the 5th, we celebrated MMIW Awareness Day. And we usually take this whole month to speak to this issue, but we kind of wanted to, I guess, inform our audience members, of those who are not aware of what this means and what it means to our people. This epidemic that is occurring within our culture, and we want to kind of speak to this narrative, and also to speak about some of the incidents that have occurred, some of the statistics around our missing, murdered people, and just the acronyms, just to kind of give you like a 101 of this. And I'm glad that we have women here discussing this. Not that we're discounting you, Elder Nightwolf. But we do feel like this is actually how this became heightened, was that it was an epidemic with our women, and then we started realizing that it was affecting all of our people, our men, our boys, our girls. All of us were being affected by this. And you wonder and you ask yourself, people go missing every day. And this is the truth. Mostly people of color, but within our community, considering per capita how many we are or have been documented as Indigenous people here in the United States and Canada, North America, and South America, by far, we are the most affected by this epidemic. And it is decreasing our people. And why is that? And I just kind of wanted to just speak to this, and I'm going to let Micheline and Raquel, also speak to this as well. But we want to start with the acronyms and what they mean. So initially, when this happened, when we started this, I would say, issue started, we were informed about this issue in the news. It was listed under MMIW, which is Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. And you're going to see that a lot now. But now with the growing population within our culture, it has increased. So you're going to see all of these acronyms. Mostly now everybody uses MMIP, which is Missing Murdered People. And also MMIWPR, which is Missing Murdered Indigenous People and Relatives. Excuse me, that acronym is wrong, but people and relatives. Because a lot of us are affected by that. We may not be personally affected by this dilemma, but we know someone who is, or a relative that is. And please feel free to speak up if you have anything to say while we're discussing this.
Absolutely. I have friends that have been reported missing, and it's mostly our women, especially up in Mohawk country, New York State. My friend Alan Snowdeer, his niece was missing. Nobody knew where she was. They put the word out tribal wise. Nobody knew anything. But they found her a week later. She had been murdered and placed in a ditch in front of her house. And whoever this villain was, he cut a tree down to hide her. This is happening so much. And one of the things that really bother me is if these women were white women, they would have had an Amber Alert and everybody in this country would have known. But they don't care about us. That's the problem, Congressional members, they don't care. They're too busy getting money from the NRA to promote guns. And that's another subject that we may not touch on tonight, but I just want to let everybody know that this is not just happening in Native community, it's happening in Black communities. So we need to get a handle on this.
So just because this is such an epidemic within our community, Deb Haaland, who has been elected our Secretary of Interior, I believe. She had a signed enactment of a task force within the U.S. government to go and seek these cases. Now, this has been happening within a community for years, and it just took now the election of someone, a public official who is of Native background, to actually enact a task force to search for these women and men and our people. So far, since the task force has been enacted, though, we have seen some success. There have been a couple of cases that I just noticed that I get alerts every once in a while about cases that have been solved or that they found the person because of DNA. But imagine, DNA has been around for a very long time. And it just took this task force for them to start looking at DNA evidence for these missing people. And so this is interesting, because when I tell you how many people are missing and affected by this, I'm going to tell you this is going to take years. And I'm showing you right here a map of how many of our people are missing. And this is just here in the U.S. This does not even include all of Canada or South America or South Turtle Island, which is Honduras, Mexico, all of those areas. This is an epidemic.
Well, before the ladies talk, when they came across the Atlantic Ocean over 600 years ago, they placed their feet in our pristine waters. You could drink out of any stream or any river. And they saw us and they looked at our bountiful homelands. And they had one objective in mind. They wanted what we had. And their whole objective was to exterminate the American Indian and take what we had. So that's my comment. Micheline, waiting on you, sis. Come on, talk to me.
Yes, it is an epidemic, but it's something that's been going on for centuries. With the European invasion, and they were taking the women, then they took the kids and put them off to school. So it's just a different level of it. And it's, for me, I say it's maddening, because it's frustrating as a combat veteran that, I'm serving for freedoms, but it seemed like for Native Americans, it seemed like we don't matter. And I'm only speaking for self, because I want to say we are the heartbeat of America, and we're the ones that were here first. And, why is this all happening? And it's, and if it wasn't for social media, we probably wouldn't have never found out, because we don't make mainstream media. We're not mainstream Americans, because mainstream is white, Black, Hispanic, and Asian. And we're a classification. That's one thing I learned in the master's degree program that I just finished, that we're just a classification. And then that was like when we had, when they started the Discovery Doctrine with the Marshall trilogies. I think they just kind of put us as a classification since then, and they just went with it from that point on. But I guess it angers me because of the fact that, we're people, we're human, and we're kind of like discarded or not cared about or not even thought of as human. We have values. We're all valuable. Every human is valuable, but why does it seem like you have to choose us to destroy? And that's what's, like I say, I only speak for self, but it's maddening.
Before we go on, let's give congratulations to Micheline, who just graduated.
You just, with her second master's degree in
Indigenous Studies, right? Mm-hmm. Indigenous law. Is it Indigenous law and Indigenous Studies? Raquel, I just lost her. Okay, there she is.
Yeah, it's legal studies of Indigenous peoples law, which is also international. It was difficult, very difficult.
Oh, but I couldn't imagine any tougher person to do it than you.
That's right, because she's the big man.
Yeah, got it.
So Raquel, I know you have a master's degree too, right?
Oh no, I've just got a bachelor's degree.
Well, that's okay.
It's not just a just though. You got it. You
You
got
got
it.
it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, if I have the time, boy, I would. But you know,
Mhm.
Micheline, when you look at her, she worked a full-time job. She's running an organization. She's going to school and raising kids. Ooh, I gotta applaud Micheline for that.
Right.
Great job. So proud of you.
Oh,
So
thank you.
proud of you, sister. Yeah, but on the missing murdered as Indigenous women's definitely been a epidemic for many years. You know, there's so many times that I remember someone that I know or grew up with that went missing or was found laying in the ditch, and there's just no help for them. Micheline mentioned that social media is playing a big role, and it's really the native. We are putting the word out there ourselves. We
Mhm.
are lending a hand. There's still no help from the government at all on this.
Mm.
Definitely, my hats off to Secretary Deb, you know, which is put the task force in. But I definitely want to mention that she is the first Native American that's holding that office.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when you think about the role that the Secretary of Interior plays, I mean, they really are governing the native lands. And to just now in 2023 have someone in office that's Native American is surreal.
Mhm.
You know, we have other people dictating what's going on with native lands or even the law side of it. So when I was looking at the statistics for the MMIW, it's really non-natives that are doing this to our native women. They're
Mhm.
non-natives. So
Yes.
there's so there comes to be a lot of legal aspects of it on who's responsible for punishing or bringing them to justice, and no one's come up with uh, action for that. So that's very disheartening because it really goes to show that we are not a priority.
Mhm.
So you were talking about statistics, and I'm telling you that these statistics have actually increased since this poll was done.
Mhm.
But it says, and this is just women. This is not even talking about the rest of our people. But they said
Mhm.
5,712 is the number of incidents of missing and murdered Indigenous women since 2016, and only 116 cases were logged in the Department of Justice database. And 67% of these cases, U.S. attorneys declined to prosecute of someone of the Native community when the matters was involving some type of sexual abuse, and if it was something that was inflicted upon another Native, inflicted upon another Native, and then 96% of the sexual violence against Native women is committed by non-natives.
Mhm.
96%.
And
That's a lot. That's a
that
high statistic.
It
Mm-hmm.
is.
that
Mhm.
goes back to treaty rights.
Mhm.
You know, that's a problem that we've had ever since the inception of this United
Mhm.
States government. Treaty rights. Oh, well, he's a white guy and he violated a Native woman, but we have no jurisdiction over him as far as
Mhm.
Indians are concerned. We'll take care of it. And you see what happens. Absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
Well, there's a reason why that is, and that's one of them. That's one of the reasons, and we're going to get into that, is why
Mhm.
they're not prosecuted and why it's not looked at as a federal offense
Mhm.
against sovereign people, so and non-sovereign people. So this is just a, protected people, supposed protected people of the U.S. But let's look at this. We want to ask, why is it that so many missing Indigenous women? Why is there so many of us? And I'm only speaking from the perspective of women right now, but we are going to get into our men and our girls just briefly about this.
Mhm.
But one of the reasons is that a lot of people believe that we're a myth, that we don't exist, that our populations are very limited. Nobody's going to ever wonder if we're missing or care if we're missing, And the thing about it is, there are more natives than you know, more of
Mhm.
us of mixed heritage, more of us in the diaspora, more urban indigenous who are not, tribally affiliated or anything like that. So this is a misconception that we don't exist anymore. We're kind of like a fairy tale.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The other thing is, let's put it this briefly here. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about Pocahontas. And I want to say this from the perspective of the passivity of Pocahontas, the illusion of Pocahontas, and what we really know about that, the sexualization and the energy of this character. But we know the truth about that. Mm. She was only 10 years old when she was taken by John Smith. 10. Mm. You know, this is perversion at its finest. And we could get into what actually happened in this situation, but this is part of the conditioning of America to sexualize our women, to take advantage of our women, and to make it seem as if we're docile and that we're not going to fight back.
Well, you know, I got to tell you something. Her name was not Pocahontas. That's a white man's name that they put on her. Her name was Matoka.
Right.
And she was from the Powhatan Confederacy, who her father, his name was Wahome Shinakawa. And Wahome Shinakawa, they were fighting real hard against this white thing. And so what they did, tribes in Virginia that were not winning these wars and attacks from white folks all went to him, and he pulled them together in the into his band of people. And when they came upon the Virginia Indians, John Smith, they kidnapped her and took her out on a boat beyond the horizon so nobody could see the boat. But the Indians had captured a lot of these white colonizers. And John Smith made a deal with him. He says, well, if you will release your captives, then we'll bring her back to you. Well, that never happened. So, you know, one lie after another lie to cover up another lie. Then she married John Rolfe, who was one of the sailors on that boat. And they took her to England, where she lived and passed away. So, you know, folks, you need to wake up. This whole bunch of BS that they keep throwing at us in these movies and all this other mess is nothing but a bunch of lies. How do you feel about that, Micheline?
I think it's the guilt and shame. So they're trying to detour what the real history of what the real story is by, you know, movies like this, and put humor or put, you know, like songs in it. But in reality, that's not how it is. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they're trying to, history is starting to come out, and the majority don't like it. So they're doing everything they can right now to kind of stop, you know, pulling out the truth of the past. But it's not going to stop. You could sit there and try to write a bill or stop it or whatever, but guess what? It's still coming out.
Right.
You know?
Raquel?
I think it's just shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I've noticed recently is there are a lot more movies coming out about the MMIW movement. I watched the series Alaska Daily that has Hillary Swank in it, and that really dictates what happens to Native women when they're missing. You know, no law enforcement was there to help. They were covering up. They had suspects that they didn't follow through with. I mean, there was just so much that went on in this series that, you know, if a person hasn't watched that series yet, they definitely need to, because it really does bring forth how people dehumanize Native women. And that's what they did in here. I mean, they were talking to one of the sheriffs or the police officers there, and really, he really dehumanized her. So that it made it like it was her fault that she went missing, and they were going to send resources to help her. So that I'm glad that more movies and shows are coming out like that, and being truthful about it. There's another show that just was at the Canines this past weekend that stars a lot of Native actors. Leonardo DiCaprio, Martin Scorsese directed it. But I think now movies are coming out that have natives portraying it. We got more natives that are going into the film industry, so that's really helping out.
Mhm.
But I think we, the Native people, are the only ones that could make change like that. We got to really voice our concerns. We have to rally together. I mean, we really got to stand up for stuff that is dehumanizing natives.
I appreciate the truth. One of our viewers, Daniel Miller, said they can't stop me from telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And we need more of our Native men to stand up and protect our women at whatever odds. And these sleaze pictures that they show of, like this week here, oh no, that's a bunch of crap, and you know it. Our women don't dress like that.
This is the thing, though. This is what I was talking about, the sexualization of our women, selling costumes and then making it as if it's a sexy image, This is hypersexuation, and anybody that is like a sexual predator is going to come after our women because of how they are depicted. Understand, these are not Native women showing these outfits right here. This is not our imagery. So this is, and this is the thing, this is what's happening with our community.
If you wear a headdress, you have to earn every feather in it.
Right.
And women don't wear headdresses.
Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead.
That's people making money off of our heritage. That's what that is. So that's that appropriation of Native American culture.
Exactly.
So I think on that, when I see it, definitely I'd let people know if I see someone dressed up as a Native for Halloween that I'm not a costume.
No,
we gotta let them know that that's not right.
and we are not reduced to relics in museums either. Real living human beings, and this is our damn land.
Exactly.
You're a guest, so act like a guest when you come here. If not, leave.
So one of the other things that is also affecting us is the extraction industry is putting, they have something called man camps that are encroaching upon our, land. These man camps are put up, they're housing to accommodate a large influx of workers who actually follow this work all across the country. And these men patronize like local bars and stuff like that. And we wouldn't know if there was a predator or a serial killer or anything there because there is no background check on these men when they go into these industries. And they could be a serial killer just going up and down, wherever they're following, any extraction company or any oil company, and killing our women or our people. This is an image of what a man camp looks like. But it's temporary housing for men. And these men, the closer they get to our communities and they patronize our facilities or any of the local bars and stuff like that, they come in there and women go missing at an exorbitant, a huge amount of women leave, just end up dead or missing when these camps come along.
They had a lot of this in North Dakota. And my friend, Tex Hall, who is the past chairman of the 3 affiliated tribes, and also the past president of the National Congress of American Indians. Him and his people went down there and fought a lot of this because our women were turning up missing every day. And they would rape them and everything else and then throw them along the side of the road. Come on.
And the other reason too, one of the reasons that we have a lot of our people go missing is too on our native land, especially in particular Pine Ridge. And I'm going to use this as an example. Pine Ridge, we think of it as a reservation and we think of it as being contained, but Pine Ridge is a large reservation.
Yeah.
And it's separated. Here's a map of what Pine Ridge actually looks like. But what I really want to show here is the distance between large cities like Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Aberdeen, Watertown, all these large cities. Now, why this is very important, because travel, if you are working, let's say that you are a Native woman who gets a job in Rapid City, you have to commute back and forth from reservation to these cities. And if you don't catch the bus, which ends at 11 o'clock, let's say your shift ends at 12 o'clock, you're pretty much stuck in these areas where you cannot, move. You can't take an Uber because it's a lot of money to go from there. I'm talking about you're looking at like 3 or 4 hours outside of a workplace of the res itself. So a lot of our women, not so much now, but they would hitchhike to these areas. And you have to look at this because there's a lot of the truckers, men who drive trucks who usually pick up our women, are going on these routes. And we would never know if somebody got someone in the back of a camper or something like that. We would never know or see our sister, our aunties, our cousins ever again. So this is an epidemic here. And let's also, before we go into what's happening in Canada, let's talk about our Indigenous men who are missing. So I put this picture here in particular because I could not find any other photos of our Indigenous men in South America, in particular our men who are missing in the Amazons, who are fighting for their people in the Amazons, who are fighting loggers and big companies who go missing and never come home again. And this is so much of an epidemic that this has gone to the United Nations. Because these men go out there to protect their land, to protect their community, and from these loggers that are just ripping up the Amazon right now, and they go missing, leaving entire families to be, without a father, a brother.
Well, the biggest industry down there is logging.
Right.
And they go there because mahogany grows there, like it grows crazy. And mahogany has a real big price on it anywhere in the world. And, it breaks my heart to see how they treat us. And we ain't never done a damn thing to them. When they came here, we taught them how to live. We taught them how to grow crops, which they didn't know. We fed them when they were hungry. And this is the thanks we get. Oh, hell no. Go back to where the hell you came from. Because I didn't send for you. And I know none of my other brothers and sisters sent for you. It's just, okay, I'm finished. I'm off the soapbox.
So I also wanted to put this picture here too, because each one of these situations deserves a topic of its own, a broadcast of its own. But let's not forget about our children that go missing in foster care. They go missing. They're sold to sex slaves. Foster parents who say that they're taking care of our children are, selling them out to and this is one of the reasons why ICWA is so important. Why it's important that we place our children with people who want to protect our heritage and our history, and know the importance of what our children are who our children are to us. But this is actually something that's going on that hasn't even actually come out yet. But I am telling you that most of our children go missing within the foster care system.
Yes, and on that note, Les, there's one thing that I've been trying to fight here in North Carolina is, they say they want to keep the Native children with family and relatives. But as you know, a lot of our Native people live in poverty. So if a child goes into the care of the grandmother don't get any help, no assistance. They'd pay a stranger so much money a month to care for a Native child in foster care, but will not have a family member that takes that child in. So to me, I think that's backwards. I mean, if you want those.
In the state of New York, they pay you to take care of your elderly parent. Why could this not be the same thing that's applicable when you're taking care of children while where their parents are in recovery? This is just all this is someone passing a law that they would get the same kind of governmental support for doing that, as opposed to not getting any support anymore because they're just basically replacing them with a family member.
Yeah.
People call me. I get calls from all over the country a lot. And there's word going around that a lot of these children are being used. They're they're harvesting their organs.
Mm.
Yeah. So what more can
Yeah,
I?
there's no accountability
Mm-mm.
in the foster care system.
Mm.
There's some that are great, but there are some that are just overwhelmed with the foster care, and the social workers, obviously, they don't get paid enough for what they do. But there's not enough hours in a day for one social worker to check up on all the children they're responsible for.
Mhm.
And the people that use that system to take children and do what they want with those children know that. So I think altogether that system needs to be revamped to make sure that they are protecting all children that's in foster care.
One of my close friends called me a couple of weeks ago and told me, now this is a Native woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they saved 3 little boys that were being prepared to be shipped to Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
What the hell is that about?
Mhm.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
it's,
They know that we lack a lot of resources and funding,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like they kind of we always hit a ceiling when it comes to that. And I myself, I adopted 4 children through the ICWA program, but there's like maybe one of so many in 100 that'll actually take that step. But
mhm.
yeah, it's like Raquel
Mm-hmm.
said, we live in the Native Americans live in poverty. They made that a point. It's a controlling mechanism.
Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
When
yes.
they introduced the alcohol, when they introduced the drugs, when they put us in the urban cities, it's a controlling mechanism.
Yeah.
And now they're shifting it to another controlling mechanism. And I'm like, and our politicians aren't really. I'm not going to say they don't really do anything, but it just shows that I feel like y'all don't care.
No, they
Mm-hmm.
don't give a damn. That's
Well,
what.
really, what it comes down to with the politicians is we don't have the numbers in the voting
Mm.
polls.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
That's really what that comes down to.
And
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 it's a shame that a lot, I think as Native Americans, we definitely need to do a better job at getting up to the polls and showing people that we do have a voice and we do count.
Mhm.
But I think the politicians know that.
well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something, and I'm gonna say this, and I don't care who don't like it. Donald Trump was the one that enabled all of this racism to come back from out of hiding.
Mhm.
Then you got this idiot down in Florida, DeSantos. What a fool! They don't want to. He wants to take the true history out of the books, get rid of books.
Mhm.
Well, I think that what it is just always been there. It's just that they empowered these people. Now
Mhm.
they
Right.
empowered them to do these things, and believe it or not, you're seeing from the support that they're getting, you're seeing how many people have been hiding under rocks
Mhm.
with that feel this certain way about our people, about our nation, about people of color in this country, and the restriction of telling the truth about the
Mhm.
things that America has done to the people of color in this country. In
Mhm.
particular, our indigenous people,
Yeah.
starting with our indigenous people.
Yeah.
Daniel,
Like a lot of people don't know the US government committed genocide against Native Americans.
No,
You'd be surprised how many people I talk to and they do not know that.
yeah,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. They had a price on Indian people's heads up until the 1930s. They
Mhm.
would pay $100 if you went out. They would tell these guys that were fur trappers, "You want to make more money? Go out and kill an Indian man and scalp him. Leave the eyebrows on, the ears, nape of the neck. Pull that scalp off and take that red skin off of him and put it in that bloody pouch. Bring it to us. We'll give you $100. We'll give you $75 for a woman and $50 for a child from infancy until adolescency.
Mhm.
Mm.
This.
Even as far as the biological warfare,
yeah,
it
Mm.
actually did start with the natives when we got the smallpox.
yeah,
Yeah.
Was it
yeah,
Oh yeah.
smallpox? Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that was one way of trying to get rid of us. And
Mhm.
it was through a trading, I think it had happened. But I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
It,
they
it,
put in
it,
the blankets.
mhm.
They gave
Yeah.
out blankets like they
Well,
were helping them,
the
But
other
but it
thing
was
too is
infected
the
with
is the
smallpox.
That exactly. Also we talk about the paper genocide of how people had to identify when we were separated, because like I said before, there are many of us walking around that are native, but we were told not to talk about it, or we were told to identify as something else. We were forced to do that for fear of dying, for fear of what Elder Nightwolf said, of somebody coming and saying, I remember I had an interview with poor Faye maybe about a few months back, and she was saying that they would whisper about it in the backyard. Don't tell anybody that you're native. Just tell them that you're Black. Tell them that because they were killing us.
Daniel Miller in Alabama, very true statement. He says that they still have boarding schools, residential boarding schools in Alabama. Now, this mess started with the churches, with the endorsement of the U.S. government. These boarding schools are going to kidnap our children. And they mistreated them. And I mean, it was just crazy. I got friends that attended a boarding school. Everybody knows Dennis Banks. Dennis was a product of the boarding school. But not just that, on Rosebud Reservation, I forget that sector of Catholic priests that went there, they opened up the boarding school. And then when the tribe got on its feet in recent years, the tribe voted them out. They left the boarding school and everything else there and left. The Jesuits. So,
at the end of the day, that what you're saying, though, is the genocide of the people. The whole purpose of the boarding school was to kill the Indian and save the man. So you have to understand that from that was part of the agenda of annihilating our people. It was a continuation of that annihilation. It has always been genocide. It continues to be that. It continues to be us killing each other, in words, and who is Indian enough. We're destroying ourselves as a people. But we do have to continue, because I do have a couple more things that we need to talk about. So I did speak to you all about Highway 16 in Canada. One of the things that they call the Highway of Tears, where we have had more missing women on this highway. And once again, I said it with this road of land where we have truckers, that women hitchhike because the reservation is so far away from the major cities. So they actually have signs to our women: please don't hitchhike on this road, because this is how far this road goes. And let me just kind of pull this up. This road goes from the United States all the way into Canada. It's a very long road. So if someone was taken across state lines, we would probably never see them again. We wouldn't know, but this is affected. This is how many women, and I don't even know this is this particular poster right here of all the women that have been missing from this area. Now, some of the women are of Caucasian women, but the majority of the women gone missing on the Highway of Tears have been our Indigenous women.
Yeah, so to me, that seems like a great place for them to put up stops and have more presence of the police or highway patrol, and maybe volunteers out there to help provide rides. I mean, it just seems like it's an easy fix. So I just don't understand, why don't people help?
Why? And if this is such an epidemic within Canada, and the law enforcement knows that, why don't they have stops? Why aren't they checking trucks and pulling them over like they do at our borders? Here in Mexico, we've got more manpower down there for people and I could get into a whole diatribe about that. For people
that's a whole other,
people who actually belong in this country, as opposed to all that manpower that's down there, and we have all of our people missing, and they're not putting that manpower where it needs to be placed.
Yeah, and that's just goes to show that that's their priority.
So I want to just bring up something that our panel, that our viewers are watching. America is now experiencing, this is from Kajinja Ashe, He says America is now experiencing the result of their genocidal attacks against us with their guns and diseases. This is a spiritual law of reciprocity. It can not end until America confesses up and tells its truth. And I added that on there. So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
you got DJ Cooper. He said it happened to my great grandmother. Grandma in Virginia had to identify as black or mixed race to survive.
Right.
That was Dr. Walter Plecker's crap. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was a racist from the day he was born. Anytime a child was born that was an Indian, he would not allow them to put that on that birth certificate. You were either mulatto, black, or colored, or other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we got so many of our Native people who can identify as Native.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's so
This
true.
is so true.
They were
This is so
provided even the opportunity, even if their mothers wanted to say that they had a Native child, it wasn't even an option.
No, no.
It wasn't. I mean, we could get into a whole story about that alone.
Micheline, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they even went as far as changing their last names to like our Smith, or like I think there's Jefferson, and and when I know the Plains, they did that. I know my father, he didn't want us to, when we were living off the reservation, he didn't want us to speak Crow. He didn't want us to act Indian. He didn't want us to let them know our last name was Big Man. And it was a struggle because I attended all white school, and it was pretty bad because coming from a reservation school already, we had that substandard education, and then trying to go into a school in the city, it was hard. But it was just, they take that extra step of even changing their last name, especially those in the military. Like my grandfather, when he was in World War II, they were doing that because just to avoid some of the things that the stereotypes that they had to overcome.
Yeah, well, when you think about World War II, natives weren't even citizens.
No.
We didn't get our citizenships till the 1950s.
I know, that's ridiculous.
It's crazy. And people don't believe me when I tell them. They got to look it up. But we weren't even considered citizens of the United States, and this was our homeland.
And then they tried to keep us from practicing our religious culture. And it wasn't until 1964 when they passed in Congress the Native American Freedom of Religion Act.
Yeah. And and now that's why there's so many Native tribes or communities that are learning their culture all over again.
Yeah.
Just because there was just a generational gap. Even when you think about boarding schools, they took away those children. Most of them didn't make it back home. I mean, who was there to pass the stories down to, or to teach the language to? We had children come back from boarding school that couldn't even communicate with their family because they spoke English.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to speak English in the boarding school that I attended, and it was ran by a Catholic. It was a Catholic a curriculum type. But no, we couldn't speak our language. We couldn't. They really tried to strip us from a lot of our identity, and at the same time saying God is love. When I had a hard time trying to have a faith because I'm like, if God is love, why are we going through all of this?
Yeah,
because it was religion that you were learning, not God. Not the creator.
Oh yeah,
not the creator.
So I want to just continue. So most of our audience may be aware of the case of Gabby Petito that went missing. Her boyfriend actually murdered her, and she was missing for a few days. But I want to actually highlight her case in particular because where Gabby got much attention around her case, our Native women don't get that attention when we go missing. Not once. Notice this woman has, her family had the whole media rallied around this one girl, but there are many of our women who are missing that we don't have that same coverage.
No, and
We,
it's always been like that. And I was so angry at this case. It was on TV for what, 2 weeks straight, even when they were on the manhunt to find her boyfriend. But they came from an area where missing Indigenous women happen on the daily.
Well, and that's where I wanted to talk to you about. In the area where she was missing, do you all know that 700 women, Native women, have been missing from this area? 700.
700.
so what we need to do is talk to these Native people, our people that own these casinos that are doing well, and we need to have our own Indian alert, just like they got the Amber Alert.
I agree. And I think that this is maybe something that we need to look into. I petition that we start something such as this because it would bring attention to our people that are missing, that we have that. Why don't we have this in place?
Well, I think Secretary of Interior started the task force this year.
Yeah.
That they're focused on that, but really it was to bring the different law enforcement entities together because they work separately. So when you talk about the state and then the FBI, I mean, they were all on the same page on a lot of times. So I think with the task force, I'm hoping it works because we need something, but at least we have this task force that she put in place now.
So I just hope it stays.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I just hope it stays, even with our next election.
Yeah,
hope they don't get rid of it.
And I think we really have to push it. We have to fight for it. We really have to fight that it stays in place.
Yeah, and that's what's scary, Micheline, is we have a voice up there now through Secretary Haaland. But you're right. If she's not in office anymore, or in that position, will the next person have a voice for Natives? That the Secretary of Interior has been around a long time, and this is the first time they even had a Native in that position.
I think it's something that we need to fight for within our communities.
Yes.
Let me throw this out. Because of all of this, do you remember the walk to car across America that the American Indian movement used to do?
Yes.
Next summer, we need to have a walk across America to bring attention to our civil rights and human rights. That's what we need to do. We need to bring 150 to 250,000 people to Washington, D.C. to the National Mall. I bet they'll pay attention to that. Because when AIM came here in the early 70s and they did a mass takeover of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they paid attention to that.
Or Alcatraz.
Yeah, exactly.
Trudell, yeah.
So I just wanted to say that in looking for Gabby Petito's body and that area in Wyoming, they found 10 bodies. There were no Native women there, but all these bodies were found. It took this woman, death of this one woman, for them to start digging for bodies. And they found all these bodies there. So obviously this is a dumping ground for predators. But it took them this case to do that. And like we said before, 700 of our women have been gone missing in that same area. Now, for the 10 women that were there, the 10 people that were there that were not Native, 700 of our women. So this is why we say this is an epidemic. This is why we remember our lost on May the 5th. This is why we are really highlighting it. And this would be something that we highlight every day or take a whole month to do this. But we need action here. This has been basically kind of like an underground organic movement, I would say. It didn't come to any national attention until Deb Haaland got into office. But I want people to understand why this is necessary, that we look at this. And if it's not just Indigenous women, understand this affects all women of color, but our women the most, Indigenous women the most.
Yes. Men are no longer respecting women like they should be respected. Who in the hell told these white boys on Capitol Hill that a woman can't control her body? That's a bunch of crap. Nobody has a right to tell a woman that she can have abortion or anything else. That's between her, her spiritual guide, and her doctor, period. Men need to, you guys need to step out of this one because you're going to get burned on this one.
Well, what we want to express here too is the fact is that we are talking about women specifically, and this presentation was about women. But understand this is affecting our people, our men, our boys, our girls. Just as we spoke about earlier in the broadcast, what this has also come to is just the control of our people. The I would say undermining of the woman being, sacred in communities. Because when the Europeans came here, the woman was second place to everything, probably third place to property. She was on this property. And bringing that mentality here when the colonizers came here affected our people, which is mostly matriarchal. And so just to say that this is about control, if you are someone who is watching this broadcast, please, please, please speak about this, show and share this broadcast so that it kind of gives you just a brief overall of what is going on in our Native community with our men, women, boys, girls, and people. And let me also add our two-spirit people are also being sex trafficked as a result of this too. So it's all of our people are being affected. We've
always had two-spirit people in our people.
Yeah. Yes.
There were stories about how Native people would send their children to be taught by two-spirit people.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
No, we don't have a problem with it. And the thing is that all of our people are sacred. All of our people need to be protected. And this needs to be an issue that is highlighted. We hope that we gave with this brief overview a little bit of knowledge for you to speak to other people about what's going on, because many people don't know that this is happening and many people don't know this is existing. So please share this information.
Leslie, I want to ask you a favor.
Yes.
We need to have part 2 of this with more of our women on it. Can we do that?
I'm okay. I'm all for that. All for that.
Micheline, Raquel, you all will come back for this, right? Because we need to do a part 2, 3, maybe even 4. Because
I think there's a few topics we could discuss. We mentioned boarding schools was one. I mean, that would be a great topic in itself, and definitely talk more on this issue.
Because they all intertwine because
they
it affects us.
Exactly.
Ikwa, talking about the state of Ikwa. Yes, definitely. I agree. Well, we're at the top of the hour right now. Thank you so much, Micheline and Raquel. Elder, please thank them while I do some background work in the back. But thank you all. Thank you for just coming on the last minute and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. I appreciate you, sisters, so much.
I will tell
Thank you so much.
I would tell you this. When the Europeans came over here, they would not talk to women. Before they came here, the women were always in charge. They picked the wars, the battles to fight, and they would pick the warriors that they wanted to go fight these battles. I had a great grandmother that was a woman warrior. And we're going to get into that next few shows or whenever we come back. Would you all come back?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to thank both of you, my sisters. I love y'all, And I had the rare opportunity to meet you a few years back when the NAACP was doing the education board thing. You remember that? And I was so honored that you all had me to lead you in to this award ceremony. And I've never forgotten it. I will never forget you. I'm your brother forever. So you got something you want
amazing.
To talk? Just call me. I'm just a phone call away. And I love you dearly, all three of you, Leslie included. for having the gall to bring this to television. So thank you all.
Micheline, I just wanted to say something real quick. You did mention in our private chat about the United Nations having a more, they actually have, can you explain a little bit about that before we sign off?
Well, the United Nations, they have the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples because it's, I want to say it's outside the United States that are kind of taking responsibility and accountability for what happened to indigenous people, regardless of where they were at. So now they came up with this declaration. The 4 countries, we call them states, that didn't want to join in on it. One of them was the United States and Canada. And then I think it was Austria and Australia. Now, since then, because it came out in 2007, and then I think it was when Obama was in 2010, kind of like, okay, yeah, we can do this, but we're only going to do this, this, and this. There was reservations, and there was, so I know the United Nations, and that's what I learned was that they're really big on trying to fix a lot of this, and it includes, the missing and murdered, indigenous people. It's just ridiculous.
Our own country.
When they first came with that indigenous rights thing at the United Nations, I was invited to speak there, and I addressed the whole General Assembly of the United Nations, and I told them like it is, not like they wanted to hear, but I told them, because I don't care, you all are my people, and being a man, it's my responsibility and duty to protect my people. So I love y'all.
Man. All right. Elder, would you like to do some closing words before we sign off for the evening?
Yeah, what you got to eat? I'm hungry. Regardless of what you think or what you've heard about my people, a lot of it's been nothing but lies. We are just like you. We went to war to protect this country. We took the oath, and we did what we had to do. And people ask me all the time, well, why do Indians volunteer in the military? Because what we have left, as far as land is concerned, is domicile right here in the United States of America. So if somebody attacks the U.S., they're attacking us. And that's why we fight so hard in these wars. So I want to just tell all of you, read a book, find out the real history, and stop assuming stuff, assumptions, please. No, get the facts, because the facts do not lie. They tell the truth. So until we see you again, the next time we're on the air, I will leave you with these words in Cherokee. Danada goai wado. And wado in Chalagi means thank you. Talk to you soon.